Los Angeles is fighting a growing problem with unlicensed pets. It's estimated that fewer than 1/3 of the dogs here in Los Angeles are licensed.
Not only does it mean lost revenue for the city, but it could be risky for the owner. Here now to explain why is Amy Gilbreth. She's the executive director of the Found Animals Foundation. And we want to welcome Amy to our show this morning. Thank you so much for being here on a Sunday morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell me a little bit about this program and what you guys are trying to do?
Sure. Well, pet licensing is nothing new. It actually originated back in the early part of the last century as a way to prove that your dog had its rabies shot. And back then, rabies was a big public health issue because rabid dogs would actually bite people and kill them. So rabies has been eradicated thanks to a very successful vaccination program, but licensing still exists because it's still important to get your pet its rabies shot, and your license proves that. But it also helps get your dog or cat home if they ever get lost, and is an important source of revenue that helps the city run their shelters and other programs.
And talk a little bit about that revenue. How does the city go about collecting that? How much is it for the pet owner, those costs that are involved?
Well, it's a little bit confusing because, as you guys probably know, the Los Angeles area has lots of different municipalities.
Yeah.
So we have a great website called lapetlicense.com where you can go enter your zip code and it will tell you for your area what is the licensing agency and what are the fees. For the city of Los Angeles, a dog license costs $20 a year, and $7 of that, or 35%, actually goes into a spay and neuter fund, and the city uses that to help low-income pet owners get access to spay and neuter surgeries that they might not be able to afford.
Gotcha. And I know a lot about this because during weather, when we have thunderstorms or we have strong wind events, dogs, cats, they flee their backyards and they end up being lost for a long time. Does that happen?
Absolutely. One of the most important parts of licensing your pet is that it's great identification.
Yeah.
Nobody plans for their dog or cat to get out, but weather happens and gardeners and movers leave doors open and natural disasters, and so you never know when your dog or cat might get lost. And having a current license tag tells animal control when they pick up that pet that this animal has a loving home that wants it back, and it gives them a way to contact you and make sure that you're reunited with your...
So not only would they wear their name tag with perhaps your address on it, which is probably not a good idea these days, but maybe that pet identification tag is the better option.
Well, we actually recommend 3 forms of ID for pets. We recommend that ID tag with your name, phone number, contact information, because your neighbor may find your pet and be able to bring them right back home. We also recommend the license as required by your municipality, because that information will show up in the city system, and a microchip, because sometimes collars fall off, and so the microchip can be your last line of defense.
Right.
Why don't people take the time to get licenses for their dogs?
I think a lot of folks just aren't aware that it's a requirement. I think they don't realize, because you don't hear about rabies and the issues around vaccines as much as you used to. I think a lot of people go to the vet, get their dog its shots, but then don't realize that they need to also license.
Sure, and I'm sure at the same time it's not something that's enforced by law enforcement around there. There's not a pet police that continue to hound you and say, hey, you must put a license on your animal.
Right. Until you probably run into a problem.
Well, it actually depends, and it's interesting. An audit just came out last week from the LA City Controller's Office, and one of the things that they were very critical of the Animal Services Department about was their lax enforcement of licensing.
Interesting.
Because that is revenue that the city is missing out on, and so there's a great opportunity right now for folks who maybe have let their license lapse or are a little behind to actually get current in the city of LA through the end of March without owing any late fees or penalties. But come April 1st, the city will be more aggressively enforcing licensing, and if you are a little out of date, you could be subject to some pretty stiff fines.
Well, it's a huge source of revenue, of course, for the city, but it benefits all the animal owners. And just walking along streets in Santa Monica or going for a hike, you see animal owners everywhere in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it really is one of those rare things that's good for you and your pet and good for the community. It can help you get reunited with your pet faster if they're ever lost, and that money that goes into this neuter trust fund is really important to helping folks be able to sterilize their pets and to not generating unwanted litters that help overcrowd our shelter system.
It's a win-win.
Well, being an animal lover, I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing, because, you know, it is very important for us here throughout the community. And to find out more about you, Amy, and Found Animals, just go go to our website at kcal9.com, and you can find out about more information on licensing your pet. And we really want to thank you for taking time out on this Sunday morning to join us and give out all that great information.
And she was going to bring a four-legged friend, but she said all of her models were not camera ready this morning.
Well, they just weren't this size. They're a little bigger.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
All right. That's great.
They weren't camera ready.
That's all right. It's all right. Next time we'll have her bring them in.